Stardate 8675309. Is that the same? I think we've done that joke before.
You have.
Welcome to Star Trek Discovery Pod, kind of smart, kind of funny podcast about the new Star Trek and beyond. I'm your temporary captain for the night, Grant Davis, and with me on the view screen, we have
Mariah Gossett,
Clyde Haynes.
Tonight, we're going to be streaming the pod live on YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, and Twitter to review and break down Star Trek Discovery, Season 3, Episode 6, Scavengers. Before that, Mariah, can you let everyone know how to support this little podcast venture of ours?
Yes, there's quite a few ways you can help us out. Actually, the first thing is to subscribe wherever you listen to your podcast. Even if you are watching us live tonight on YouTube, make sure you are subscribed to that audio version. You can find links to everywhere you can listen to the pod at StarTrekPod.co. Also, for just $2 an episode, you can support this podcast on patreon.com/Star Trek Pod, and you can get access to our exclusive Slack channels where we're doing watch-alongs, we're breaking down theories, we're discussing possibilities of what the music could mean. It's a great group. I love our patrons. I think they're some of the best humans in the world. And if we had aliens involved, as Anson Mount is trying to help us out to do, if y'all saw that news this week, that's pretty exciting. He's trying to make first contact with some aliens. Very cool.
What?
We can talk about it in the Slack if you join us on Patreon for just $2 an episode.
Nice. Nice. You know what is fun? Is listening to this podcast. Like when you're driving or you're exercising or you're hanging out around the house. But you know what's even more fun? Is if you watch it live and you can participate in the podcast. So if you're watching us on Facebook, on Twitter, on YouTube, on Twitch, wherever you're watching us, here's what you can do. Type in capital P, capital O, capital D in your chat, and you can ask us questions, and we'll get to at the end of the show.
So before we jump into all of this episode, a couple things. Like Clyde's pointing out, we are live right now on YouTube, and we'd love to have you guys come chat with us. You can also occasionally, you can see what we look like. You can see what I'm drinking, and I want to talk about this because this is not mind-blowing to me. I have this beer I just got from right down the street, this place called Batch, and it's a carrot cake flavored beer.
Why would you do that? Why would you do that?
Did you put some cream cheese frosting on top, though?
It tastes like it already has it in it. It is bonkers. It's got carrot juice, nutmeg, cinnamon, vanilla, and lactose. And
just stop.
It tastes like... I don't know. I only had one sip, and I was like, "Did I just take a sip of a
milkshake
cake?"
I mean,
it was weird. Anyway,
you're a beer purist, so I'm a little shocked by that. But
okay. Yeah. So you guys should watch us on YouTube because
you can see what beers Grant is drinking and the facial reaction he gave after that first initial sip.
It's weird. I'm gonna plow through it. Mariah, you brought up that Anson Mount is looking for aliens.
Yes.
I feel like we should at least discuss this a little bit here.
Oh, man, I did not prepare notes, but yeah, he is working with essentially a scientific society, and I'll look up their actual name if I had pre-prepped for this conversation instead of just talking about it offhand.
I just want the overview.
Yeah, so essentially they are working to try to make contact with other intelligent life forms in the galaxy. They've been doing so for a long time, and Anson Mount has signed on to sort of help, I think, in the area of bringing more attention to their work and also as like a spokesman. But I'm thinking it's really unfair for these poor aliens if the first human they're going to meet is Anson Mount.
I know,
handsome Mount. Like they're all going to think we all look like that beautiful specimen, that chiseled jawline.
It's all diminishing returns after that.
It's nowhere to go but down from that.
Nowhere to go. But I think it's really cool that he's using his platform as like a popular sci-fi character to now, hopefully help some scientists continue their mission and further our investigations into space.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
I had no idea. Also, if you have already subscribed to our YouTube page, you may have noticed this week that we put out a little video, but it was one that I had worked on where
Grant
I tried
had fun with the green screen.
I did. I played with the green screen. I tried to make one of those little those nerdy theory videos. where I'm really diving into what could have caused the burn or who could have caused the burn. And I appreciate the feedback on that. It was pretty fun making it. Might try to do some more, and I might try and rope you two into doing those with me.
Yeah,
as we go forward.
I love a good green screen, so
yeah. But if you haven't checked it out, go to our YouTube page. Check that out. All right, let's dive in here. Let's take a trip to the Emerald Salvage Yard. This episode was written by Anne Caffell Saunders, who also writes for The Boys and wrote on Battlestar Galactica. And it's directed by Douglas Aronofsky, Arniokoski, who was directed on Discovery before, as well as Picard. He's got the receipts. This is the one where Burnham and Georgiou go rogue. Tilly tries to tame a cat. Linus transports everywhere, and Stamets makes another friend.
Aww.
This is Star Trek Discovery Pod, so we don't just give you our hot takes. We give you our hot breaks.
Hot breaks!
All right,
nice.
Clyde, you want to kick things off since you weren't here last week? What'd you think?
I like this episode a lot. I don't know that it was very surprising. But I liked it, right? There wasn't anything like, oh my goodness. I mean, we expected that Book and Burnham would kiss at some point. Like, we'd see it. We knew that there was something going on there. I think 3 minutes into the episode, I wrote down in my notes, is Burnham going to have the shortest XO position in the history of Trek? And is she maybe the worst XO ever or the best XO ever? I don't know. So none of that was surprising. But it was executed really well. I enjoyed seeing a number of things. I was super excited because I've been waiting for, I guess, 2 episodes now of Discovery getting some upgrades. And so the minute that they started out with that, I was pretty much like locked in. I was like, I still don't understand the whole detached nacelles thing and why that is a cool thing, but okay. And honestly, like, isn't every episode where Georgiou is a badass a great episode? I mean, you just want to see her bullies. Like, I could watch that all day. And a nice fight scene with Georgiou and Burnham. I mean, come on, like. This episode had a lot going for it. And it was also, I really appreciated a different look at Stamets. I mean, Stamets it's almost like a brand new character this season. And I'm kind of digging it. So yeah.
Mariah?
Yeah, I agree with you, Clyde. I think we got to move the plot ahead in at least a very interesting way. Sometimes there's episodes where you feel like they're like, we need to just push some information ahead and get us to the next place, but we did that. We got the third black box, so we got the end of this mission, but it was very entertaining. I agree. Anytime Michelle Yeoh is just being her kick-ass self, I'm here for it. I also think we're finally getting a little bit more of a deeper dive into her character, which I'm also interested in, beyond just her being, Emperor Georgiou, this totalitarian sort of person. Also, we get a Grey's Anatomy style, we're pausing the elevator kiss scene, which I am also here for. If anyone else has watched so many of those happen throughout those seasons. And then, yeah, I think I like seeing how Saru and Michael are having to come to terms with what their relationship is like now in the future and what that's going to mean for the crew. I think this Stamets, I like that we got like another toothbrushing scene, between Stamets and Culber, which I appreciated towards the end. And yeah, I just thoroughly enjoyed the whole thing. It's like hard for me to pinpoint like anything beyond a few moments of like kissing and kicking ass. They're probably my 2 favorite things of the episode, but I had a good time. It was a good ride.
I'm with you too. I think that this was a jailbreak episode.
Yes.
We got a good prison break, and those are just. I think it's a very familiar template, and it's just pretty fun to see one of those. It was a good way to bring the character Book back into the story, and to not dawdle on the tension going on between the Burnham and Saru dynamic. Those characters, I think they just really highlighted that she's going to go rogue and be a wild card in that position. It's actually inappropriate, and it's going to be trouble if it was going to continue. So I love where they go in this episode with that. Getting to see a little bit more, another little glimpse of what this future looks like with this kind of slave salvage planet was another kind of interesting take. And yeah, overall, I think all the points that you guys pointed out, it's fun. It seemed almost as its own standalone, with a few threads kind of being woven in for the larger ongoing plot. And I'm glad that they are taking these steps with the direction of the show, because I think it pushes the confrontation of these characters in interesting directions.
I think one thing that is super fascinating to me is, it's almost like that we've reboot a reboot, right? Mm-hmm. So here we are in the third season, and prior to this, we kind of always understood who the big bads were. You had Klingons at one point, like you had Terrans at one point, so we kind of understand who everybody was. But what they've done in the first few episodes of this season is they've introduced bad guys, and they haven't killed them, and they haven't eliminated them. And so it's almost like they're stocking the villain pond with future villains to deal with. So now we have Osira. We had the one guy from the saloon. Like, it's just every once in a while, they're just these bad guys who will pop up and will be fodder for storylines for, the next few seasons, I imagine. Like, this time we didn't even get to see them. That was like, just talk about them. I was like, oh, that'll be interesting.
That was super fascinating. Like, what do you guys make of this Osira character?
I saw the person who writes the Vulture recaps had probably one of my favorite lines this week in his review, Devin Maloney. He was talking about the nephew, and he said, it's run by the Emerald Chain, or more specifically by Emerald Chain's boss, Osira's meat sack of a nephew, a C-average Harvard legacy, daddy's hedge fund looking motherfucker whose name is not important. And I was like, that is the best line to describe that character I've ever read.
And he did such a great job of playing a guy that you're immediately like, I want to dismiss you, and at the same time, I want to turn, face you, and punch you in the face.
Exactly.
Yeah, he immediately becomes one of those characters where you say to yourself, oh, I'm so going to enjoy watching you die.
Right. Like watching Burnham put him in a leg chokehold was very satisfying. And then as soon as he beams out, I was like, ooh, I was really ready for Georgiou to just give him another beatdown. But if he's anything, if he is the shitty version of the person in charge, whoever is actually in charge is going to be intense, to say the least. Yep. So I'm very interested. And they were sort of talking about at the Federation headquarters, the Admiral was saying they were in some sort of diplomatic talks with the Emerald Chain, some things going on. And so I wonder if, there's sort of two things I saw happening at the end of this was yes, they got the intel, but is destroying this thing either weakening them, or is it going to anger them to make it even harder for these diplomatic talks to occur? So I'm wondering if there's going to be some larger repercussions from the destruction of the salvage yard.
Yeah, but I think the issue with that is, part of what we're seeing again, this is fascinating to me, because you look and go, a couple seasons ago, we were looking at kind of the Federation and 10 years before Kirk, and really looking at it being built, right? And we were always talking about what the Federation is supposed to be. Well, now it's like the Federation has been destroyed. We're starting over, and we're still talking about building the Federation back up. So when I think about that, the one thing that I know is that the Federation would never be aligned with slavers, which is what they were. And so to me, the fact that they were enslaving people and then randomly killing people for no reason told me that, this is not a conglomerate that the Federation needs to have any dealings with.
Right.
And so, yeah, I'm not surprised that it broke off. And I think when the Federation really starts to get their legs underneath them, this would be, enemy number one for them.
I thought that Admiral Vance had a fantastic scene near the end when he's talking to Burnham and Saru to get their assessment. And like this kind of, in a way,
this better be the best thing I've ever heard.
Yeah.
That whole exchange, like him recontextualizing things for Saru, who Saru's put in an awful position, but there's also a tinge of self-righteousness that was going on from his perspective, and how he didn't even think that Burnham's concerns merited being brought up as an option to Vance. And Vance quickly pointed out, like, you don't know what would actually work for me either. Yeah, I'm stretched thin, but there might have been an opportunity there as well. So don't assume. I also want you, bringing these ideas to me. I think that,
especially after Saru's whole thing about like, we're here to help you look up. It's like, wouldn't have this been the moment to come to him to be like, hey, like, remember that long metaphor I gave you 3 weeks ago? Like, here is that opportunity.
And it's perfect that he didn't, because it gives Burnham the vehicle to once again go rogue, to fracture that relationship with Saru and make Saru question himself, as well as this trust that he's given. Because I keep thinking about, I think that in a preview, either for the beginning of this episode or last episode, they talked again about Saru coming from the species. What's his
Kelpian.
Coming from Kelpians that were pretty much the alpha predators of their planet until the other species was more technologically advanced and prevented them from going through midlife puberty or whatever that made them the predators. And now that he has this in him, I'm wondering how many betrayals, how many instances of second guessing his relationships with people might lead him to kind of giving into this a little bit more of a alpha personality.
Well, I think he needs it. He needs a little more alpha personality in him, because right now I think he is still stuck in the old ways. Like, he's so by the book. He's a by the book captain. And you know what we always see in Star Trek is by the book captains never really work out. Right?
Right. There needs to be some flexibility there.
Yes. And he doesn't seem to understand that the world that he's in right now is very different. He's in the Wild West. He's not in this, even pre-pristine Federation, but he's trying to make the Federation like, well, we've got to hold we've got to uphold these ideals, because this is what, and I'm like, dude, you're the Wild West. People are just like killing people left and right. You need a certain
naivety, right?
Yeah, you need more flexibility and a little bit more like gunslinger mentality to you.
Right. I think at the core, like his core value system is obviously there. Like he has all of the right intentions. Like he was saying to Burnham, like he understands her intentions, and he understands why you would move forward with that. But it's like, why did everyone love Kirk? Why is Kirk this like, legacy legend in Starfleet? And it's because he essentially was the Burnham of his crew. Like, he was going to go a little rogue. He was going to do things a little off script. And he had Spock as his number one to help him sort of bring it back to a point of intention and a point of logic, and see it from, that more regulated point of view. But ultimately, Kirk was the one making all of the decisions. And so, I think we can
switch that?
Yeah, exactly. That's what this is what happens when you switch it. And so I think Saru has to finally see that he can't just have a yes man as his number one, someone that's just going to always say yes, sir, like Burnham was, who then flipped and, was like, well, I can't trust you if you're not willing to listen to me and like talk this out, if you're just going to shut it down, So
see, it's interesting you say that, Mariah, because what I was thinking the whole time was, it's not even so much I can't trust you if you're not gonna listen to me. What I heard Saru say was, I can't trust you if you're not going to do exactly what I say. Right. Like I think when you look at Picard's not exactly a pure Kirk rebel, but what we saw week after week with Picard was he brought his staff into the ready room and they collectively had these conversations where he was like, okay, and he took the information from the room and then they did these wild and crazy kind of off script, borderline jeopardize the prime directives type of moves. And so it wasn't necessarily it was always Picard, but it might have been Riker or Geordi or somebody who was going, hey, I think we need to try something a little different. Saru is focused on making all of the decisions himself right now.
Yeah, I don't think he's really assembled that like panel of confidants quite yet, because I think he sees Tilly as someone he can go to right now. But Tilly is still an ensign and is still looking up to Saru in this particular way. I think he's got to like figure out who else needs to be around that ready room table, because like you were saying on Next Generation, and the same thing for Voyager, right? Like we had Chakotay as a very strong number one, and then Paris was very, stubborn. We had Torres, who was also very stubborn. These were hard-headed individuals, but they all managed to work on problems together. And Grant's just going to nod along like he knows what we're talking about.
I think I got the answer, though. I think I got the answer. First Officer Jet Reno.
I mean, I wouldn't be mad at it. And I do want to at some point, I mean, we could talk about it now. It's jumping way down in the episode as far as the plot line goes, but who do you think is going to be our new number one? I saw the chat already sort of starting to discuss this.
Well, do you guys agree with the decision first off? And who do you think should be the new number one?
I don't agree with the decision, but I think for the reasons that we said, I think you don't need a yes man or a yes woman or yes person in that seat. I think you want somebody who's going to challenge you a little bit. And Burnham's that person. But on the other hand, I think it frees Burnham up to be the person that this era and time period needs her to be, which is, someone with a little bit more time on their hands.
I 100% think it was the right call. She wasn't reliable. She wasn't going to be the person he could confide in. Her mind's somewhere else, and she's one track mind focused on that. And that even if Saru definitely needs someone to push him, she wasn't even doing that. She's just nodding and then doing her own thing on the side. That's not the person who challenges Saru. That's the person who constantly defies him. And frankly, it's not a beneficial relationship for either of them. So I think he did the smart call, cut the tie, and said, you can go hang out over there in science. Maybe that will allow you the flexibility of what you need. And as far as a person that he should make his number two, I mean, I don't know. Can he bring Tilly in? Tilly, he went and confided in, and she straight up gave him the right answer. She's like, go tell the Admiral. She put you in this position. That's on her. That's out of your hands. You need to tell the Admiral, or else it jeopardizes all our relationship. It was perfect advice.
It would be quite the jump for Tilly. Yeah. Because she's still an ensign. Do I think Tilly needs to be at this collective table that's meeting more often to figure out these problems? 100%. Do I see some things they've maybe plot-wise set up to create possibly Culber as our number one, which would be interesting to see a doctor in that position. That I think that could be a possibility, because I think he's one of the only other commander level folks on the ship. So I've been trying to think about who is in the ranks and who's been getting.
I feel like if I don't remember their name yet, they can't.
Well, I don't think it'll be Stamets, because I don't think Stamets wants that at all. I think he'd be like, no.
Away from what he does.
The other character is this the blonde gal Nelson that they've put. She's been taking the chair a lot.
Oh yeah.
That is a possibility. They've been giving her more and more lines every episode.
She was the person who was playing Arium, right? And then they took the same actress, and
it's not the same actress.
It's not the same actress.
No, I looked it up because I also thought that. But and I mean, it could be someone who possibly played her season 1. I know there was like a different actress season 1 to the next season.
Maybe that's what it was.
I think that's what it was.
Something along those lines. Anyway, but there's also, I mean, Linus has had some interesting plot points this season.
Man, Linus is comedy. He is he's comic relief. Phil R said something in the chat that I liked. Phil R said Non would have been the obvious choice.
Yes,
but she's on the seed ship.
Maybe she'll come back because she was written in as a series regular for this season. So I'm like, maybe she'll come back because we need a new number 1. That is a possibility. I'd love to see her back on the ship. And then there's, Bryce and Reese. Oh, the other one I thought might be interesting was Kayla, because we've been giving her all of this like stress stuff. So is this going to be the stressor that finally breaks her?
Oh, geez.
Is that she becomes the number 1? I don't know.
Well, I actually like one more. I don't remember who said it, so I'm not going to be able to give you credit, but Willa from the Federation.
The security officer.
Oh.
I've liked her when she's shown up. And I think that what you need in that number 1 is what Burnham gave you, is someone who understands the time that you're in, right? Who understands the landscape. And so I really like the idea of Willa coming on and being number 1.
Well, let's jump away from that to, a related topic. You talked about Kayla and her kind of undergoing something. Georgiou, we see, is going through seemingly PTSD from some traumatic event that she hasn't reconciled. I'm guessing from the Mirrorverse, where a character name, was it Sar?
I thought she was saying Sun.
Sun?
I thought so too.
I think it's pre-Emperor Georgiou. Her son is killed in something.
I think it was Sir or Sar according to the subtitles, but I could have been wrong.
I don't know. It sounded a lot like Sun.
Oh, okay.
But I did not put on the subtitles, so you could be correct. A third rewatch I shall have.
I don't love this Georgiou that is flawed a little bit. Right? I like the Georgiou who is just like pure hardcore. This one, where right when you need her, she's like in a trance. I'm not enjoying. Just not enjoying that.
What do you guys feel then is the desired trajectory with introducing this plot? Because it seemed to us last episode, when we first got kind of the inkling that she might be kind of glitching out a little. Sorry if that's an inappropriate way to phrase that, but that it might have been in relation to Cronenberg's character doing something to her. And now she's revealed like that this has been going on for a few weeks, and I'm not sure how much time has passed since she talked to Cronenberg.
It said it's been about 3 weeks since they arrived. So
okay, it could have been related. He could have helped in saying something. Just as she blinked those holograms, he said something and triggered her.
Yeah, I saw someone mention, I think in the chat last week, that Cronenberg's character perhaps is also from the Mirrorverse, and perhaps he's able to, access memories or remind her of things that happened in their timeline. But I know I was doing some reading because they did it's called Succession. It's the comics about the Mirrorverse. About sort of like both before and after Discovery came and went, and what happened after Georgiou left. And apparently in that universe, Burnham wasn't actually, like, Mirrorverse Burnham wasn't dead. So I don't know if that's going to have anything to do with anything, but I just thought it was very interesting to know. She does eventually get killed by someone who ousts like someone else down the line of who's in charge, but who knows when that happened. And all kinds of fun things could ensue from there.
I gotta be honest. There's a point where Georgiou says, like, that Burnham says, like, you like trust me, and she goes, I remember at a certain point that there was a Burnham who told me to trust her as well. That didn't work out so well. Was she talking about this Burnham, or was she talking about the Mirrorverse one?
I think she's talking about Mirrorverse, because
either one of them would have worked.
Yeah, I was like, I feel like this our version also probably screwed her over when she said, "Trust me."
Yeah, I'm not sure, but I'm hoping we get some more of the flashbacks. And I know they've started to bring up Ash Tyler as well, which also makes me think weird medical stuff has happened to her.
Like, oh no, they're gonna bring him back.
I don't want to hear him. I don't want to see him. I want to forget he exists.
A lot of people love Ash Tyler. I think we may be anomalies.
That's all right.
There was this comment here from C. Michaelakis. Cronenberg mentioned Terrans having a different gene. Do you think he somehow modified Georgiou? It seemed like there was something that cut out in that dynamic, that discussion rather. That it ended in a way where we don't know what happened between the end of that conversation and suddenly her just staring off into space.
Yeah, I'm hoping we get to see the rest of that interview at some point, because it was definitely a fun dynamic between the two of them. So I hope we get to see like how that played out, and then, like whatever this thing that has happened to her that has now sparked all of these moments. But yeah, I don't know.
I definitely feel they were threading in more hints in that scene than I probably gave it credit for the first time I watched it. I only watched it once. So yeah, that might be something to go back and investigate. What were they saying between each other, and what's the subtext?
Yeah.
What other things are they kind of dangling in there?
And then the things we see in her flashbacks is like obviously blood, a person's body. We see a Terran like badge. And then it also looked like perhaps what looked like some sort of house castle type structure.
Right. I was like, is this Masters of the Universe or something? What's going on with this?
Yeah.
As Emperor, wasn't she in a palace? So I mean,
she was on like the Emperor's ship. So perhaps it's something with the palace. I don't know. It's very interesting.
Yeah, it seemed almost fantasy-esque, which is like uncharacteristic of Trek for me.
But it's the Mirrorverse, so anything goes.
I liked it. I like seeing that. I was like, oh, Lord of the Rings, what are we getting here? We saw in the beginning of this episode, now that I'm jumping all back and forth on this episode.
Right,
we saw in the very beginning that the ship is getting modified, and they break apart the
nacelles. It's called
nacelles. I was like, I wrote it down.
Nacelles, either one is fine.
But what do you think, Clyde?
What do I think? What about them breaking down the nacelles?
About how they redesigned the ship a little bit.
I mean, I loved it. Like, I loved every minute of it. Like, I was like, I wanted to know more. I was a little annoyed that they didn't give me more specs. I wanted to know like all the stuff.
Well, did you notice when we do the pan over, not only it's a smaller disc, like thinner, and then also we see it's now NCC 1031-A, which we normally only see. So this is like the next generation of the ship, and typically we only see that when it's like a full rebuild instead of like an upgrade. So I thought that was an interesting choice.
Yeah, but I guess maybe you redesigned it enough that it has a different character to it.
I mean, yeah. I mean, the interfaces are all different. Stamets clearly says, "I don't know where anything's at." The badges are pretty cool. Like,
yeah, everything seems super efficient. Like, oh, you just need this badge, and it does pretty much everything. It checks your email.
We finally get to stop laughing about how still in the 25th century they're walking around with iPads.
Yeah,
which I feel like has been a joke for a while.
And all of them just like loving it, except for Detmer, who's just like,
oh, not something new.
I don't need more of this.
I mean, I can feel that from the side of like a pilot who then has to relearn like a whole new system. However, I did think, and I saw some folks on Twitter talking about how it was nice to see them talk about how these new systems will adapt to the person, which is sort of like what we would like to see for people who have like disabilities. It's like, instead of having to make them adapt to situations, it's like the situation adapts for them to be able to be the best and perform at their best at their job. So I thought that was really cool.
Maybe for Detmer, it won't even pop up at all.
I mean, maybe, it might just be like, you're not comfortable with this, so we're going to keep it flat. But yeah,
like the old way.
I thought the team who worked, like the special effects and like props masters, helped work with the team on like what all the gestures would be to work with like the with our new tri-quarter hollow everything transporters. They had a fancy name for it, like quad button.
All-in-one badge.
All-in-one badge.
All-in-one badge. Uber badge. Super badge.
Badge.
Listen, I was digging it all, so I was like, yes, finally.
I think it looks cool, and I love them all. Like specifically, Linus popping in at inconvenient times, like our elevator kiss scene, which I'm so glad we finally got. But
I was so annoyed at Linus. I was like,
I was kind of annoyed. Yeah.
As soon as he hit that button, I started like singing like the song from The Little Mermaid, where it's like "Kiss the Girl," you know, like in my head. I'm like, if you don't kiss this girl, I'm gonna come through the screen.
Speaking of that kiss,
wait. We're still talking about tech.
I want to talk about the kiss.
We'll talk about the kiss. But Stamets got the things out of his arms and new interface for the spore drive. I'm like, this is great stuff.
He gets to play with Nickelodeon GAC or whatever.
Like that does seem way less of an issue or less painful in a lot of ways. Although I'd still want a chair because it seems like it's a very stressful thing that he goes through when it's happening. And so I'm like, at least something to lean on, like a bar stool. Can we put a bar stool in?
I think you're right. A chair, like a really comfortable, it's almost like a captain-like chair.
Right.
He should be able to sit in, relax a little bit and go, okay, now let's get this thing going.
Yeah.
Do you ever see those pants from Silicon Valley that like have the stool built into the butt? He needs one of those. Like, but nanobot stool. He just sits and it like forms.
Yeah. Oh, maybe there is the tech, not like the programmable matter will like come up and make a chair for him when it actually happens. That could be cool.
But not for nothing. It does seem like on this ship in particular, everybody's standing quite a bit.
So much. They're really getting their steps in.
Yeah. if you're not like Detmer or O, I feel like everybody else is standing.
If you're not moving around, your bones are just getting weaker in space, man.
Oh, is that it? Okay.
I guess.
There you go.
So the kiss. They had at least 3 shots, 3 different angles. I think they went a full 720.
They knew we needed all of that for that shot because they built it up so much. I mean, if we want to start with that look across the salvage yard when they finally see each other, like you could feel like that, like the gasp, you know, like the air left the room moment.
I came across space and time for you.
Exactly. I didn't send you a passive aggressive note. It was a passive hollow. You know, their little like quips together were very cute. And then like all their little moments of her having to pretend to boss him around, but she probably liked it a little bit. And they were having a very interesting time.
Yeah, it was good to finally get confirmation of what that relationship is, I guess.
Well, I mean, I don't know that I needed the confirmation because I think we kind of knew.
I think the moment he took his shirt off, we knew.
Yeah, well.
We knew in our hearts, but not in our minds.
I knew I needed to do more sit-ups. That's what I knew. No, but I think the thing that I liked is I was going to get annoyed if Linus shows up.
Oh, and ruined it.
And ruined it. And it's just another week where we go by and go, will they, won't they? But the fact that he leaned in and did the whole mid-sentence, you know, I'm taking this kiss. I'm not wasting another moment. I think was great. And it was like, it felt like completion. And I was like, good, finally.
Yeah. I sort of moving away from the kiss for a little bit. I wanted to talk about how I thought the world building at the salvage yard was really well done, from like the swooping in and seeing all of the ships sort of hanging out in space that they've obviously been sort of pulling down through time to collect pieces from, to the full set of like all these different pieces, which had so many fun little references to other treks. So like there was the big bin of like comm badges, and there's even a Klingon badge in there, some Klingon stuff in there. Wow. The phaser that he first brings out to present to Georgiou was of I think TNG era phaser. Man, there was like a bunch, and then everyone on Twitter was also talking about this today, the something with the ports. It's a Deep Space Nine reference. I will find it at some point, but there's a Deep Space Nine reference to something that everyone on the internet was having a great time about. So I think it's fun the way that they pepper in these references throughout for folks, even at Federation headquarters. You know, when we're coming in for the big captain's meeting, we get to see the names of all of these different planetary systems and planets that we've seen throughout the series, as well as he mentions that they need to clear a ship before they do some sort of cleanse, which is like
the Cuyahoga.
Yeah, which is a reference back to that. So I thought that it's, you know, I'm having a good time finding all the fun Easter eggs.
Yeah. Mariah, the chat is blowing up. Everybody wants you to know it's self-healing stem bolts.
Yes, thank you. I knew the chat would come through.
I mean, I don't know. We like 6 people said it. Does anybody else want another shot at saying self-sealing stem bolts in the chat, just in case we missed it?
Can't do it. It's too much of a tongue twister. I wonder if they got it on the first take. I agree. I thought that the planet was pretty well realized. One thing that seemed a little odd to me is when the people are making their escape, it seems like there's 20 slaves for what is a massive compound, to the point where I'm like, did they miss a whole bunch of people and just clear one room and then kind of kill everyone else by shooting up the place? Or could they just not get enough extras for this role?
It was that shift change. That's why they needed the 40 minutes. And so I think that was the shift that was leaving before the next crew was supposed to come in. And that's why they had to
come in onto the planet. Okay. Okay. I mean, I was like, that's not a whole lot of people, but maybe that's just who they had. It just seemed like such a massive compound that got shot down. But yeah, I agree. I liked how everything felt. It felt dirty and gritty and full of tetanus.
Yeah, and I think it was meant to feel so antiquated for a reason, because the Star Trek that we sort of know for the most part has moved past the concept of like people being in debt for this sort of stuff, and obviously the concept of enslaved peoples, and now we're seeing both of those things sort of come into fruition at this moment. So I appreciated kind of how dirty and grimy and antiquated they made it feel, because it is like this outdated idea that people have sort of just come back around to in order to essentially try to show their power in this portion of the galaxy, right?
Yeah, Mariah, you're making me think about something. Is that typically in Trek, and I'm thinking whether it's TOS or TNG, Deep Space Nine, Voyager, Trek, even Enterprise for the most part, Trek is very clean. Like it's very pristine. Like it's like you're in space. There's not even like dust, right? Like all the ship, the everything that you move around is just so clean and smooth. And much of what we've seen in the future is very dirty and grimy, and it feels more like a space western, right? It has much more of a it's got much more of a serenity feel to it, right? Like it's got much more of a,
I swear those are Westworld-esque brands that they got in the back of their neck. Speaking of Western feel.
Yeah.
It felt like the little map.
Yeah, the swirly map. I was like, I've only seen one season of Westworld, but yeah, to your point, Clyde, I think it's interesting that they are trying to show, you know, it's like even in the costuming, everything's very leather and natural materials. We even get like the wood in Book Ship, which I think is a little bit of a departure. But I appreciate the elements like Book Ship, because I think me as a person, I wouldn't want to just be in this completely sterile feeling environment all of the time, right? Do I want to be in this salvage yard? Absolutely not. But do I appreciate that they're trying to show, I think, these, more human, approaches to space travel? That is sort of interesting to me. But to your point, I think they're trying to really hammer in that this is not the world that we know. Right.
Yeah. It's definitely making. I was gonna say, it makes me want to go back and watch Firefly again.
Yeah, Lisa says got total Firefly vibes again from this episode, the Janestown episode. But also, remember when they go and rescue Inara from that castle? Like in that episode, like there was this almost fairy tale-esque castle that she's in at one point. They go pick her up there. I don't think they're rescuing her. But also that reminded me of Georgiou's kind of vision of the castle.
Oh, true.
Home Chicky. If you haven't seen Firefly, you gotta watch Firefly.
It's a good one. But what's interesting, so the writer who wrote this episode also wrote Pegasus for Battlestar Galactica, which is one of my favorite episodes. And when you think about, if anyone else is into the greater sci-fi realms of things beyond Star Trek, it's like, I think we've seen this grittier future in a lot of things. Even in now, I'm thinking like The Mandalorian, which is obviously another space Western. I think space Westerns, I made the point, I think the very first or second episode of this season, even Gene Roddenberry described Star Trek as a space Western. And so I think it's this natural fusion of, because this is the quote unquote final frontier, right? Everything is a little bit dusty and weird and grimy as we're figuring out how things work. And for a lot of this show, beyond maybe the original series, everything sort of had its path. We had a federation in place. We had all these regulations. We had treaties already signed. We had beyond Starfleet, we had the Federation as well. And now we have these bare bones existences of this. And so everything's gotten dirty again.
True. We have a couple other things we have to address. First off, Tilly's biggest scene was probably with Grudge the cat in this episode.
The most cat-like thing ever is walking past the video screen. Anyone who has a cat right now and has to do Zoom meetings, that's all your cats love to do.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty funny. Great acting there with just the interaction with the cat and how uncomfortable she is with Grudge climbing on her back. I don't know. I was pretty amused by that. And my theories or Clyde's theories that she's actually literally a queen.
She's definitely a queen of something.
So we're gonna find out. She rules some other whole
realm.
Queendom.
Yeah. She's in charge of something very important. I would guarantee it. But yeah, I thought Tilly
literally flew there and was like gonna talk on the screen for a second. I was like, oh shit.
I mean, that would be cool.
I was expecting something similar. Like I was like, uh-oh, I was just like waiting, like, what's gonna happen here? And then nothing. I was like, oh, okay.
Right.
Nothing
the other thing I thought we should probably bring up is of course Stamets and Adira.
Yeah, I liked that. Oh, I was gonna say I really liked the scenes between them, but I'll let you keep going.
Well, I was just gonna say, like, it definitely has moved into this paternal role for Stamets, where he's seeing something of himself. He's seeing this younger generation and wanting to offer guidance. And there's just an element of love and compassion that, especially like when he sees how Adira has adjusted the goop, the gack that he gets to play with, and then offers to like help him with his arm. It's very endearing, and I buy into it. I like it. It's heartwarming in a way that I think I was making fun of the first episode where they meet up because it felt more like some TGIF kind of scene. But I blame the music in the background for that one.
I love it. I think I don't know that we get enough of this type of relationship in Star Trek before. And I think initially I was expecting more of what we typically see, which is like the big brother, the bigger sibling relationship, like we would see in TNG with Wesley Crusher and Geordi and Data and whatnot. It was almost like, hey, these are my big brothers, my uncles. Whereas we were looking for Wesley to have that relationship with Picard, and it just never, ever happened. now we see it. I kind of expected it was going to be Tilly and Adara, and it was going to be kind of this, again, this sibling relationship, much like Tilly and Poe. But instead, I'm digging this idea of Stamets guiding Adira because he understands what it's like to have lost someone, but then kind of sort of have them back. Yeah, I'm for some reason I'll be honest, it's a little sappy, and I don't know that it's always like right in line with what I would expect, especially from Stamets' character from the last 2 seasons. But for some reason, I like it and I'm bought in. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you, Clyde. I think it's much more of like a mentor-mentee relationship. I see it now. And then, I think I can also just feel the outside of their characters having a relationship. I know Blue has talked a lot about how Anthony Rapp and Wilson Cruz were so great as far as like shepherding them into this career and this path on this set. It's their first job out of school. So this has to be very intimidating, and having sort of that family that's there to welcome you in, that is, aware of how it can be really hard for queer and gender, non-binary people on sets and working in Hollywood. So I think that the relationship feels so real because I think it is real on some elements, that mentor-mentee relationship there. And I've seen some people in the chat and some other folks online talking about how, it sucks that for Gray's character, we had to see them die, in order to have this additional, queer and trans character on the show that's technically dead. So perhaps we're going to see them come back in some way, shape, or form, like we did with,
how does that work?
With Culber. I don't know. Star Trek magic. How did we get Culber back? Like, so I don't know.
Gray is literally living inside of a character,
right? But who knows? It's the
Star Trek magic.
Star Trek magic. We're even farther in the future, so who knows? But yeah, I also like Adira and Gray's relationship together, and that Gray is essentially Blue's constant sort of almost like cheerleader-esque relationship. Is just like, you are smart, you are capable, like you need to make friends, get out of just working all the time. I'm assuming it's very similar to what their relationship was like when Gray was alive, as well, as being this sort of like, we need to live life sort of person, because they are housing all of these memories of other people. But I could also see for Adira how now having all these memories of all these other people is probably like, well, why do I need to live life? I have all these other people who've done it for me. So now I can just work. So yeah, I'm excited to see more character development there, specifically with the relationship between Stamets and Adira, and how they can sort of support each other and making each other better. Because obviously even Adira's already done it by helping Stamets get rid of his arm ports and adapting the technology. And so, one of these powerful minds combined shall rule the world.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely think there's something sad about what's going on with Adira being kind of trapped with this person that they had to let go, but at the same time is almost haunting him. And yet there was this kind of sweet moment of being able to introduce Dad to your boyfriend and have Dad accepting of it, in a way, accepting of the fact that, like, I believe that you are talking to this person, that you see them. And I don't know, it felt like there was something a little bit, something relatable, something very real going on, even as corny as it is. And I can't handle corny stuff, Clyde.
No,
not even a little bit.
I thought about you during this scene. I was like, I don't know if Grant's gonna like this scene, but
Yeah.
I did. I ended up really liking it.
That's good. Did you also like the other scene? I thought about that is when Culber and Stamets are talking in bed, and it gets a little cheesy there. But I think it's just because like we now have almost like philosopher Culber, you know.
I mean, it felt unnecessary to me because I thought that most of what they were saying was already expressed in the dynamic between Stamets and Adira.
I think it was a little bit of fan service for all of the for all of us who are like, we want to see gay characters just doing normal everyday things. Like
I appreciated it for that element, you know, like just seeing how they interact. It's cute, but for what was expressed there, I mean, it's kind of the gist of what I was getting. It was almost just telling us what we were already told.
Well, I thought it was a nice bow and summing up. Like it's especially for a show like this, it was kind of like, look, we're gonna wrap this up just in case you may have missed the nuance here. And for me, I gotta say, I think Culber is crushing this season. And it makes me go back, like, why the hell did we have him dead for so long? What he adds to
Ryan
the show.
Fuller.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I just think what he's bringing to the crew and to the show is incredible. And honestly, I probably didn't mind because I was like, well, we didn't get a whole lot of him before this scene, so toss him in any scene you want because it brings it something, right?
Fair, yeah.
Character, I would say he, you know, I've often talked about how Stamets has felt like in previous seasons a bit of the heart of this show. And I would say now it's really Culber who's the heartbeat of this crew. Maybe not the heartbeat, the conscious, maybe like really the conscious, the soul almost of Discovery, where everybody else has these very clear roles and clear kind of issues that they're sorting through. He's the anchor. He keeps everyone kind of grounded. And so I think that touch point at the end of this episode was just kind of like, it was almost like just a bit of a breath, like, oh, okay, we're wrapping up now. Okay, I'm good.
And maybe this buttresses the point. Like, do you think Culber could possibly be our number one in our next episode?
I think that's a fascinating candidate.
I still think Willa would be better, but if not Willa,
what do we know about Willa? She knows the song for that everyone's playing. That's like all we know about Willa.
She knows the landscape of this era. But if not Willa, to me, your number one has got to be mature, thoughtful, and provide insight that your captain may not miss. And so if those are the qualities, then Culber is a quality candidate.
Clyde, you ever talk to a Gen Z kid?
Not if I can help it. No, I'm kidding. Yes, I do.
You know how difficult it is.
I'm an old, so
just considering a 15-year gap, trying to talk to someone and relate to them,
yes,
and having a different kind of language and familiarity with things.
I try and keep it lit all the time, man.
Add 1,000 years and then just be like, hey, Willa. And she's like, oh, no, we don't say hey here anymore. You're like, shit, I don't even know how to start on page 1.
That would be interesting.
I think it'd be too much. Do you guys want to take some questions?
Let's do it.
Chris Rogers says, I do kind of hope that Adira and Gray are not permanently linked characters. I think that at some point Gray has to kind of recede into Adira's memories or something, and then continues on going, don't get me wrong, I love Gray and I love this dynamic right now, but I hope it serves to lift Adira up to a kind of independence and confidence that doesn't seem to be there yet.
That's interesting. I know they've already started filming season 4, and Ian Alexander and Blue DeBario are both in Toronto currently. So I'm assuming that means they're both in season 4. But who knows? Could just be they are like, we don't want to have any spoilers, so we're flying you both up.
Do you think they'll bring Gray to life at some point? They did it once. My seal network can just rebuild people left and right. Lorca's back, guys.
I don't know. It would be interesting. Or maybe they adapt something so that there is like a hologram of what Blue is seeing. So it is a more concrete character for other people to interact with. That could also be interesting.
I mean, following up on that, P.W. Gregory says, I think this is a reference to what I was saying. How do you let go of someone who's still around? Fair point. Like, Adira is haunted by... haunted is probably
haunted is a strong word.
Maybe it's unfair, but I mean, at a certain point, you might want some space, right?
I mean, I don't know.
Literally, it's a 16-year-old.
We haven't like established what the sort of rules of their relationship
Boundaries
are.
Yeah.
Well, like, is Gray there all the time? Is it just there? Is Gray? Is he just there when, Adira really needs someone to lift them up? I'm not sure what the.
Is it like Ghost? Can they shape pottery together?
I mean, they were playing the cello together.
That's true. Okay. So do you think Adira can feel Gray's touch?
I don't know.
Okay, we're getting weird now. I see where you're going there, Grant.
You don't see where I'm going. You're assuming.
I don't know.
Home Chicky says, in season 7 of Deep Space Nine, Ezri Dax does a ritual that brings out one of Dax's precious hosts. Ezri talks to the guy like Adira talks to Gray.
Well, maybe we'll have to watch that one for one of our Patreon episodes, which you can join for $2 an episode.
I don't know what Deep Space Nine is. Is that a show or?
Grant, we're going to get so many comments again, Grant. Do you know how many extra comments we get at the end of these videos? Let's say
if you guys get a chance, if y'all get a chance, go ahead and subscribe to our video and add comments after this. Not to our live comment feed, but you can comment on the video itself as well.
Do it.
Let us know overall if you thought we did a good job.
Can you play Space Chess with a mind ghost? This is like a lot of fandoms colliding for me right now. I just finished the Queen's Gambit.
No spoilers. No spoilers.
Take some green pills and you can.
You can see chess on the ceiling. It's a good time.
I said no spoilers. I mean, I've seen the first couple episodes, but
it's not a spoiler.
Okay.
All right. Well, I don't really know what we should be expecting for next week's episode.
Ooh, I'm really excited. I'm going to rewatch. So we have Unification Part 3 coming up next week.
Oh, wow.
So I think this week I'm going to rewatch Unifications Part 1 and 2, which are the talks between the Romulans and the Vulcans.
That's right. In the preview, we see... I just assumed it was Vulcans, but maybe it is Romulans and Vulcans.
I think I saw both. So
okay.
Oh, we have a couple more questions here. I'm just going to hit up real quick. First off, Carolyn says, do we even want Michael to get back to being in number 1?
I don't.
I mean, maybe not this season. I think once the burn has been solved and maybe we get a reuniting with her mom, things might change. But
there's a character growth going on at this point where I feel like she needs a lot more autonomy, and she won't have that in a number 1 position. She would have to be captain. So that's kind of where I'm leaning. Like, if she's going to level up.
What if she takes over Voyager? Sorry, I just got really excited.
And then Stress-Free K says,
that'd be cool.
Might a top echelon of the Federation have something to do with the burn? You know what? That brings up an interesting point, because I was thinking how quickly Michael Burnham has shown up here and gone, hey, you know what? We could just find 3 black boxes and triangulate them and pinpoint a source for this. And I'm like, y'all had 120 years, Federation, to research this and try and triangulate. If there was a possibility that you could have looked at when explosions happened A, B, and C point, like you don't have webcams that could have picked up when something exploded and check the time codes on shit. I don't know. I'm suspicious here.
So I will say, if anyone watched the Ready Room this week, they always have like an extra bonus clip. So spoiler alert, if anyone hasn't watched the Ready Room and you're planning to, earmuffs now.
Bring it.
I will hear you more.
It is a conversation between Burnham and Tilly talking about how the third black box does show that there is a difference in the timestamps. And Tilly says, while we have these 3 things, we can only triangulate in 2 dimensions, not 3 dimensions, which doesn't work out very well in space. And so They do bring up the fact, though, that the Federation had essentially set up all of these like communication sensors throughout the galaxy in this particular area where they're trying to triangulate. But for some reason, the report from the Federation of what those sensors said at the time of the burn didn't include any of that information. So possibly there's a few rogue folks involved.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're definitely seeing that this is going to be a bit of a conspiracy theory for a little while, and it's not just clean because Grant, to your point, it does sound like, wow, you guys you were here, you had an up close front row view, you've been here for 120 years, and you got nothing. Burnham shows up, has been here for like 365 days. And she's already figuring this out. She's got 2 black boxes and is looking for a third. Yeah, I think the only reason why she has that is because they didn't know she was looking. Had they now that they know she's looking, we'll see some impedance.
That could be interesting.
Oh, whoops! I was saying Vance is sus, and someone says Vance is bad morale for sure.
That is
good one, Carolyn.
Definitely possible.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of Vance right now.
I saw someone online. It was a good Twitter joke. I don't remember who said it, but everyone is like, you know how a lot of folks are really into QAnon right now. You know, in Star Trek, instead of everything being a QAnon theory, it's just a Q theory. What if there's a Q involved?
Yes.
A Q caused the burn.
I would love for what's that BTS? Is that the J-pop or K-pop band?
K-pop group. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I want their fans to go after QAnon by just doing Q theories. Just every time someone's talking about QAnon, just change it to Q theories.
Calling all Star Trek nerds. You
Yes.
now have to just flood everything to do with QAnon with just Q. Let's get on it. Let's flush it out. We got it. New mission.
And that will wrap things up for us this week. Thank you, everyone, so much for joining us on the pod. And remember, you can find us live here on YouTube every Thursday night at 9 p.m. Central Standard Time, talking Trek. Mariah, can you remind them where they can go subscribe?
Yes, you can listen to us wherever you get your podcasts. Also, if you can, leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. Give us those 5 stars and tell us a few lines about what you like about the show. We really appreciate it. You can find everywhere we are available to listen or to watch at StarTrekPod.co. Also, you can still join us on the Patreon. It's just $2 an episode. We have about a half the season left to go before we end with new Trek. We've had such a long run. Womp, womp, womp. But still join us. We do watch-alongs. We're doing some bonus episodes. I know Mike and I are getting ready to talk some more about the Trill. Perhaps I can talk somebody into doing some episodes about reunification with me over the next week. We'll see. But yeah, that's $2 an episode. Join us at patreon.com/StarTrekPod.
And remember to follow us on Twitter and Instagram. You can follow us at Star Trek Pod. Tweet about the episode. And as always, we want to shout out to a couple people who help us out. Karen, who runs our Twitter. James Worm, who runs our Insta. Thank you, guys. Really appreciate the work that you do.
Knocking it out of the park.
And I do believe we will be back next week. Next week will be Thanksgiving or Day of Mourning, whatever you are observing. We would love for you to join us and spend time with us. And you can join us for the ultimate in social distance Trek entertainment next week. Mariah, where do people find you online?
I am at Mariah Gossett on all social media platforms. That's Mariah with a Y and a Gossett with 2 S's and 2 T's.
Clyde.
Let's see if I get this right this time. You can find me at Clyde Haynes. And thank you. And you can find me on the web at keyandclyde.com. That's KEIandClyde.com.
You can find me at Baron Von Grant if you really want. And we want to thank you all once again for joining us. We'll be back next week. And until then, live long and prosper.